As you may suppose, tanks often sustain damage in the course of their job, and that of course means a spell in dock. After complete reconditioning has been carried out, the tanks are first taken on.
Today we are diving into a fascinating story that explores at what could have happened instead of what actually happened. I mean, we're also going to look at what's actually happened, but it's going to be quite interesting what could have happened. I want to dive into the story of Günther Burstyn and his innovation of the first ever designed modern looking tank. Günther Burstyn was an Austro-Hungarian officer who designed a revolutionary armored vehicle in the early 20th century, just right before the outbreak of the First World War. And this is the key information here, because this innovation, if would be recognized the importance, significance of it, could give the advantage to the Austro-Hungarian Empire and its army to survive, maybe even win the war, and by this survive into the 20th century. So here's the thing, Günther Burstyn designed the first ever modern tank, but his idea was never been built or realized. And this is the key information, because it's not the first innovation from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which could be a game changer, but people just didn't recognize why would it be important. When I started to research this video, I thought it would be like a very similar like the previous one about the Austro-Daimler Panzerwagen, that someone designed and built an innovative, groundbreaking vehicle or military innovation, and then the leadership was so backward thinking or reluctant to change that they just put it into a drawer, ignored it for years and years, until at some point someone, maybe a few decades later, they realized that, hey, this can revolutionize warfare and how we fight our wars. But this is not actually what's happened. Further I got into his story and the background of Günther Burstyn, it just got weirder, and it was full of interesting turns and twists. And this story became more and more interesting for me. First we have to discuss, or we have to shine the light on who was actually Günther Burstyn. What's his background, where he came from, what were his motivations, what he did. So Günther Burstyn was born in the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1879. He came from a Jewish family, which is going to be quite important a bit later. So he came from a Jewish family and converted into Catholicism, then joined the Austro-Hungarian army and served there before the First World War. During his time in the Austro-Hungarian army, he saw firsthand the limitation of the traditional military technology. He wanted to create something that would give his country an edge on the battlefield. So during his years in the army, he wanted to create something different, something which would revolutionize the army. And in 1906, he saw it. The Austro-Daimler Panzerwagen, a crazy looking armored car with all sort of gadgets and gizmos. It was nothing like ever he had seen before. And Günther looked at this armored vehicle, which was the world's first truly armored vehicle. And he looked at it and he was like, I can do better than this. This is amazing. Can revolutionize military warfare. But those very tiny wheels and underpowered engine could cause difficulty to move on difficult terrain. And here I want to just point out that the Austro-Daimler Panzerwagen, which was the world's first pre-armored vehicle, was also another missed opportunity of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, because they just didn't recognize how important this could be. They literally just swept away like, no, we don't need this, we already have cavalry and infantry, and why would anybody need an armored vehicle? Although there were other armored vehicles in the world, the Austro-Daimler Panzerwagen was built from day one to be an armored vehicle. Other armored vehicles of this age were actually civilian vehicles with added armor. So we're not talking about the same thing. In the following years, while he was stationed in Trento, he observed how the heavy artillery units navigated through muddy terrain. They were attaching chain plates to the wheels of the heavy artillery units, and this gave him an idea. He remembered that he'd seen the Austro-Daimler Panzerwagen a few years earlier, and he was like, we could just add the same chain plates to the wheel of the Panzerwagen, and suddenly we don't have the issue that a mud can slow down the vehicle. He designed this thing called the Motorgeschütz. It was a weird concept, but also was very innovative. And it's very, very similar how today we imagine a tank, or how modern tanks look like. When we look at the first tank ever appeared in a battlefield, they were actually just metal boxes with a truck. they were not really innovative, right? Which was an armored box on tracks moving from A to B very, very slowly. However, Günther Burstyn Motorgeschütz was different. It had a rotating turret, which with a 37mm quick-firing artillery gun built in to take out enemy firing units. Also had machine guns, had 2 arms on the back, 2 arms on the front to able to overcome trenches and difficult terrain. So it was a quite modern thing, which today we look at a tank and I'm like, oh yeah, this is how tanks are supposed to look like. But remember, we talk about 1906 or 1908 when actually he drew up a few designs, and he already had the right idea how a tank should look like. You could basically drive around this thing on a battlefield and take out anything what the enemy can throw at you, because you have machine guns built in for fight infantry units, you have a 37mm quick firing gun to take out armored pillboxes or enemy units or machine gun positions. So it was very forward thinking. It's supposed to be crewed by 3 people, a commander, a driver and a gunner. So the commander already had a separated position from the gunner, so they could actually direct the crew, and instead of reloading a gun, trying to do everything as a one-man show. Here is the thing, despite how cool this thing was, the Austro-Hungarian government just didn't care. They stuck with what they know, and they knew what worked. Horses and wagons and infantry. And Burstyn's idea just left in the dust. He submitted his idea to the War Ministry in 1911, and only 3 months later he received back an answer that like, yeah, we don't care, this is not something for us. He also patented his idea in 1912 in Germany and went to Germany to preach his idea to the high command in Germany. And he also got the same very disappointing answer that this thing has no future, we don't care about this. Just remember, this is the country that 30 years later stormed across all Europe utilizing the very same idea, the Panzers. But you know what is actually weird about this story? So I was searching about Günther Burstyn and about his life, and then I came across this picture. And if you look at this picture, you might recognize someone next to Günther Burstyn, and that's Heinz Guderian. Heinz Guderian, the Panzer commander of the German army in the Second World War. And when I started to look into what was Günther Burstyn doing with the Nazis, so before the outbreak of World War II, Günther Burstyn was supporting the Nazi party in Germany, and he supported them openly. And this is just a weird twist, because remember, even though he was born in Austria, his family was originally from Lviv, Galicia, and was a Jew family. In 1941, he even met personally Hitler to pitch his ideas how to improve the Panzer design, how to make the German tanks more effective and more efficient. So him and Guderian worked together to some level. He was even awarded a War Merit Cross, and when the Soviets reached Germany in 1945, he committed suicide alongside with the other Nazi party members to prevent being captured by the Soviets. Just for a second, imagine that if his original idea would be realized and would be built. If Burstyn armored vehicle would have been built before the First World War, that would change the course of history. In 1916, all fighting forces being bogged down in a trench warfare and just throwing meat into the grinder, trying to conquer another square meter, another square meter, another square meter. Not until the appearance of the first French and British tanks when breaking through the trenches became manageable. And he already had this idea, he had the solution for this years and years earlier, yet it's being ignored and kept in a drawer by both countries. So who knows how the First World War would have turned out if they would have recognized his innovation. That's the story of Günther Burstyn and the first designed modern tank of the world, and how it had a weird twist on the end, led to his suicide. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.